Alright, so I gotta keep the handlebars from smushing into the fiberglass, so I gotta make some stops up. And I'm just gonna go with a couple of bolts. And I figure I'll weld them on, so as you can see right there, I cleaned off a little spot where it's gonna make contact. And I could, that's a nut on the end there. The bolt is actually on this side. I can figure I can lengthen and shorten that bolt to kind of tweak it, and then that extra nut will be the lock nut. I can kind of change the height of it. So I'm gonna go tack that on there. I'll go put one on the other side, and when I take the front end all apart, I have some more room, I'll weld it finalies like. Alright, so I decided to jump over to the headlight. One of the problems I was having was I used 2 wrenches, and it was kind of like a diving board. You hit the headlight and it was one of those deals. So I was going to try and add a third wrench, and I figure if I can make a triangle on one of them, it would help support it from being so much of a diving board. But I have a feeling it's still going to kind of, you actually can kind of hear it. So I'm going to pop that headlight back on there and see what it does, but I think I'm going to have to come up with a different solution. But until I put that on there and see physically what it does, and then we'll make a judgment call from there. So let me go pick that bolt out of there and we'll screw the headlight back on. Okay, so that's that back on there. And unfortunately it's better, but I don't see if the camera's going to pick it up, but can you see it? So it still has that kind of vibration to it. So you don't know till you try. I'm thinking what I might try doing, just wish it was summertime, I was able to hit some more yard sales. I don't have a very good selection of like wrenches and stuff to kind of work from. I might go with a socket, a bolt on a socket, bolt on a socket, bolt on a socket, and would have been nice, would have been like an extension and weld the 2 on there and kind of make it out of those pieces. But I don't think I have them. I may go look in my regular drawer and see if I can sacrifice a couple, but and then again, nothing really says I have to use extensions. Sockets I got plenty of, but extensions no. So I'm gonna go shopping in my scrap pile and see what I can come up with, and see if we can kind of make something a little bit more rigid. That's the problem with the wrenches though. Wrenches, yeah, they kind of are of a spring steel type nature, almost like a leaf spring, you know. So you end up getting that boing 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 kind of deal. Let's see if we can. There you go. Now you can see it. So that'd be a little annoying trying to drive down the road with your headlight fluttering like that, especially when the motor's running. It'll probably be giving like a constant feedback, you know, not just going over a bump, but just constantly running. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can rectify that and see what I can come up with. Alright, so I was going to go with sockets, and then I have a whole bunch of this solid stainless rod. And that's probably like 3/8 diameter, something like that. And I said to myself, why don't I just kind of continue going with the same idea with the sockets? You can see I got one bolted onto the bottom of the light here. And so what I decided to do was, instead of using that rod to go from the sockets, I just went with 2 more 1/4 inch sockets. So those are welded onto those guys, and then now I kind of want to grind and get the right angle. Let me see if I can get that kind of on there. And there's probably, I don't know, 1/2 inch. I can put it wherever I want. I can lean it however direction I want. But I'm going to start grinding those 2 sockets down so that it kind of butts up to this guy a little bit better, and we'll see where that sits, and then we'll kind of tack them together, and we'll try to make that one solid unit, and then we'll see if it vibrates or not. But I think it'll be probably better off, because I'm also tucked in a lot closer, because those wrenches were 5 inches long, 4 inches long, where these are about 2 inches away. So the diving board is just that much shorter. So let's give that a shot and see how that works out for us. There, we got it back together. Got a little triangle happening under there. I like it. It's tucked in a lot closer than it was before, and I don't know if it's just me trying to get used to it. Before it probably sat out about another inch and a half, but again, they got rid of that that diving board effect, so that kind of works for me. And it's only half welded together in there, but you get the idea. And it's just a little bit different because it's made out of sockets. Well, probably my trademark, I should say, by now. And both my stops are put on the front. I think I should go back probably to the Speedo and figure out what we're going to do with that. I end up trying to look for a the cable for it, and they do not make a cable that is going to be the correct length for that. So I have to try to come up with making the one cable I have work in the socket that's down there. So I might do that. Maybe see if I can loosen the wheel up and I'll spin the fitting so it's pointing straight up, and see if I can make the end of the cable kind of match up to that. And then after that, worry about the mount. And am I missing something? I have to cut the handlebars, kind of shrink them up, but that's no big deal. It's more stuff to mock up. I'm trying to think of anything else I need to go mock up. Spun the bar around on the back, so now it's sitting forward. I had put it on the wrong way, and again it was a 50-50 shot, but now that's going the right direction. I might make a little pad for this too for me. And I got a carb kit to clean the carb with, tune-up parts. But that's all just basic stuff. I don't think I'm missing anything else. Again, I still have to tear everything apart in the front end, paint it all, and weld it up when everything's off of it. But I think I got it all, other than the Speedo. So let me start on that. Probably go play with the Speedo gear. See if I can spin that wheel around so that the hub is facing up for now, and see if I can make something for that. Yeah, I got that spun around. I just kind of want to show what's on the inside of there. If you notice that, okay, I'll spin it. You see how it looks like it's actually a round center, and then there's a slot on the top and the bottom right now? Well, that's how that cable was keyed, and the cable that I have, it slid out of the jacket. Show you the other end. It's the same on both ends. Is square. So I'm thinking I could probably, as far as the cable is concerned, I could probably just take some solder on each end and build it up, and then I'll just kind of file it down so it kind of makes like a you know, two wings on the side of it, and so it'll lock into that. But my biggest problem is trying to make, I gotta make that stay on there. The old one had a bolt that went through down on the cluster, so I figure I can cut this stuff off, but I got to try to figure out something to go from there to there and attach both of them together. So I think I'm first going to start with seeing if I can find some kind of nut, you know, along that line that I can work with threading, and maybe start with that. If I have to, maybe weld a coupler onto it, and possibly thinking of maybe like slipping a C-clip in on the other half of it, but I'll worry about that when I get to it. Right now I'm going to see if I can try to just find something that can thread over that. It's fairly large, so, and there's not much room on the back side where it's going to hit the wheel, so it'll be a nut, and then I got to take the nut down so that it's just kind of more of like a, what it uses on the Speedo side, which is like that, you know. So we're going to try to see what I can find. And it's about a day or two later, and it snowed again. But at this point, I don't even care. You just kind of drive over it and walk over it. You don't even bother. Ended up tearing the front wheel off the bike to get that Speedo drive assembly out of there, so I can work with it. I tried finding a nut that would thread onto that assembly. I did not have anything that kind of matched that. Here it is over here. And it's gonna be a metric thread, so I figured I could find a nut that was kind of like that, and I didn't have anything, so my next bet was to try and make something. I grabbed the old assembly that the cable went onto. You can see the big difference that was that compared to that. The old one bolted on, and the new one's was a thread on. So that's the end of the cable. It had a little cage that was on there that I cut off and exposed the end of it. And so I had to figure out how to make that go onto there. So I turned to the lathe and decided to whittle myself out another piece of brass that would kind of make one fit onto the other. So this will thread onto that kind of sorta. I kind of made it on the inside with a slight taper on it. I tried finding a tap that I would have that would match those threads. I don't have anything that's that size, and I am not I don't have the capacity to try to figure out how to make threads on the lathe, and I did not want to actually put the time into it trying to figure out how to make the threads. So if you stick this on there and hit with a pair of pliers, it will self-thread itself on there, and then the cable will fit into the ass end of it. And here I am trying to do it all one-handed. So that goes onto there and pokes through the end of it like that, and then the body threads up to that. So I figured worst case, even if I thread that on and two-part epoxy it, now I got to figure out some way to make the cable stay into the body of this. So I might just take it, there's enough meat in this where I can drill from the side, and I may try putting a set screw in there, and the set screw just rub against that and hold it so I can take it apart in the future. So I may get on that, I'll drill that and tap that and put a set screw in it, and then I got to figure out how to make the cable. Just pushing out, there you go. Is again a square drive, and I got to make it so it kind of fits that funky looking setup there with a little notch sticking out of the side of it. So we're going to try building that up with some solder and see if we can get that to match that profile, and then I'll have a drive. So let me get on that. Well, that'll be the little tapped in nipple to hold the cable in, and then we went with the little gobber of solder on there, and that should key the cable to stay inside that guy right there. I don't know if that shows up. So that should go in there, and that should lock the two of them together, and that should work out for that. So I'm going to go on to something else. Yeah, I had to go rescue it from inside the house. The battery was dead. So that's pretty much it for mock-up. I get to go tear it all apart. The last thing was just getting that speedo mounted, and I kind of copied what I did for the headlight. Just grabbed a couple more sockets, and I had two bolt holes in the top of the triple tree here, and I just took 3 sockets, two shorts and a deep, and I cut the bottom off of the original mount and just tacked it to that. So that's what I'm going to go with, and it's got a fairly good distance away from the springs. It doesn't look great, but I don't have much of a choice in the matter. You know, essentially I would rather have no speedometer at all, but again, for inspection purposes, you got to run them. And really, if I wanted to, 2 bolts, I could take it off on the bottom down there, but we'll see. The cable always looks ugly too, you know. So now I'm going to take it all apart, and I'll probably set up my lift over there, put that army blanket, spread it out, take all my bits and pieces apart, and now I get to kind of dress everything up and paint what needs to be painted and weld everything up correctly and grind and polish and try to make everything nice and pretty looking. And I got a bunch of brass pieces down below. Polish them all up. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. And we got the collar underneath there, 5. Yeah, I think these washers are brass, and these are brass too. The factory spacers on the rockers, so that should kind of tie in together. We got a little bit of brass up here. And I still have to make something to block that off. And take some out of the handlebars yet. But all my bits fit together. And hopefully it goes down the road okay. Alright, so I'm going to start disassembling that sucker and see if we can start prepping everything for some black paint. Oh, that's time to put it together in 15 minutes to take it all apart. So, yeah, get them welded on. And this is what we got. Bits and pieces. So I'm going to go over each one and decorate them, so to speak. Sand these down and repaint the black on the I'm going to try to put a tubeless tire on a tubed rim with a tube in it. See how that works out. If not, I'm going to order one. There's that setup. I think after all the brass is cleaned up too, it'll kind of look pretty cool. Each one's kind of fitted for its spot. Get them. Gonna weld up the handlebars. Cut the handlebars in here and shrink them up. These are the that's the headlight mount. So methinks I'm going to get on some welding. I might as well get all that part done first, and then I don't know if I want to probably want to try to get some whatever I need painted tonight painted so I can let it set overnight and get the reassembly tomorrow. I can clean tomorrow as I'm putting together, you know. Alright, let me get to getting. Well, I figured I'd turn the camera on one last time, shutting it down for tonight. Everything's welded up, handlebars are welded in ground. So I knocked out about 2 inches out of the center of that one. And polished up a bunch of stuff. You know, where I had the brass pieces and couplers and whatnot were cleaned up. Took the spring assemblies, it had a bunch of corrosion in the center of them. I just kind of ran them on the belt sander just to polish them up as best as possible. And give them something fairly decent to glide over, and I'll probably work my way up on these so that they get them to kind of like a mirror finish, because the brass couplers slide on that, so you got to kind of have it so that yeah, don't gall each other to death, you know. So that's that guy. I got the front end forest over here swinging away. I got to wipe them down with window cleaner and give them 2 shots of black, and I could bail out of here tonight, and we'll let them cure up for tomorrow. Just wire wheeled all the old paint off of them, and then I hit them with just 180. Should be good enough. And wherever the welds were, I just kind of ran around with the little DA, a little DA flapper disc rather, roll lock, and cleaned up some of the plates and whatnot. Did I do anything else? I felt like I did more. I don't know. Welded up the triple tree for the headlight, wherever that ended up, and the piece for that. And all welded up. Looks ugly. That's got to get ground yet. But I figure I could do that stuff tomorrow. Oh, here it is, right here. I figure I can kind of do that stuff tomorrow while I'm reassembling, instead of I just want to get those couple of pieces to paint real quick, and then the wheel's a thing in its own. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna shut you down. I'm gonna go get me some painting done and go out and get me a nice steak and cheese. See ya.